Well, we need a new generation to get it out of the ground. You cannot act. It is a hopeless. You cannot expect anything from this situation now, from the current regime. Uh, and I still believe the outlook is quite grim, and I still believe that foreign investor will not go out coming back.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the second episode of Martin Terpolowski Uncovered. Uncensored, sorry, not uncovered. For those who don't know me, my name is Martin. I'm the CEO and founder of Bivata, a deep tech company which started off here in Indonesia and is now in 4 countries across Asia. Very excited today to have my second guest on. I feel like I'm in the presence of a rock star, actually. Quite a interesting character, Ferry Latuhihin.
Yeah.
I had some real struggles saying that name yesterday when I was asking asking my audience for some questions for you.
Yeah.
And I had to have about three takes on saying your family name correctly. So I'm very pleased to welcome you. Probably the first time I've been on a podcast or on stage with somebody who might be more controversial than myself. It's interesting that people often invite me due to, basically saying what I think, which is not necessarily a common thing here, where there's a lot of what I call sycophant culture, where people always want to fit in line rather than talking the truth. I think we can safely say that Ferry is not one of those people. Very quick introduction. He's got decades of experience, and as I've said, he speaks his mind. He holds a PhD from Erasmus University in Rotterdam, served as chief economist at Bank International Indonesia, and has been deeply involved in capital markets and analysis and economic strategy for several decades now. So first of all, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
It's interesting. I was posting last week about this about my new podcast, and a friend of mine reached out and said I should talk to you. And he said, this guy is like, it'll be perfect for your show. And I said, well, I think I've met him once with Ahok at the Ayana Hotel.
Yes.
But I don't really have the direct contact. So my friend said, oh, I do. So he put us in contact. And that was just 5 days ago. So thank you for being so quick with all this. So first of all, I want to have a few questions for you. You hold a PhD from Erasmus University in Rotterdam.
Yeah.
How do you think that international perspective has affected the way that you view things in Indonesia?
Well, to a great extent, first of all, I would like to say that for me, studying abroad is a great experience in the very first place. It opens my mind. It's so wide, so I can see many other things that so many people, my fellow, probably do not see that, Well, my perspective point of view about Indonesia, when I use my eyes, my glasses from international perspective, it is rather a complicated country, Complicated in the sense that we have basically a great population, almost 300 million people we have, and young population with average age of 27, 28, a productive years, I believe, productive age, But the productivity is very, very low compared to other nations, The basic problem, the root of all evil, I believe, it is an institutional problem. As you compare with the time of Suharto, it was a great time in the sense that we have an average growth of 6.5% during his period, 32 years. Whereafter, to get a 5% growth, we are struggling. It means, in my mind, that democracy, after the fall of Suharto, opens a door for many thieves, to become the so-called political elite. So today, you see that we are burning money so much with a program like MBG, something like that. And you see as well that the dollar keeps running up, keeps going not to 20,000. And a lot of intervention by BI, I believe it doesn't help, you know.
Short-term solutions.
Short term only, yeah, you just cure the pain, you know, but you do not cure the disease, basically. What you see that the dollar going to 20,000 is just a symptom, you know. It's not a disease. So what BI does is just a painkiller. The disease is quite complicated. As I said before, the root of all evil is institution. Institutional problem like bureaucracies, you know. It's so hard to get licenses when you set up your business. It takes years probably. It is inefficient bureaucracy. Rule of law, it is a question mark. A big question mark. You know, when you have a dispute, for example, a legal dispute, you don't know probably where to go to handle the dispute. You don't know. Changing regulation every day. It deters foreign direct investment, of course. They do not feel very good when they do business over here. No, you don't know what regulation you will get later. After 5 years, you get a president. Now, all the things, what I call institutional problem, is the cause of the structural problem in the economy. The manufacturing output of the GDP, the contribution of manufacturing output to the GDP, is going down and down from 30% after the fall of Suharto, and now you get already the number of 18%. It is, everyone may call that we are experiencing a sort of premature industrialization, but I don't think so in Indonesia. It is not the case. The case is, again, that what the government does is not, it's not so good for the business, you know. Changing regulation, deters FDI, you know, high costs of logistics, you know, high cost economy. You can imagine with an ICAR above 7, yeah, it means that the economy is not productive at all.
It's very interesting you mentioned about politics and the difference to the Suharto era.
Yeah.
I mean, I wasn't obviously here at that time, but I find that quite interesting, like when I compare Indonesia to Vietnam. Vietnam has one government. There is no elections, no politics to an extent.
Mm.
And brutally honest, the ease of doing business is significantly easier.
Yeah.
Just to give you a clue, I set up my Vietnam company within 6 to 8 weeks with much lower cost than it cost me here.
Yeah.
In fact, my paid-in capital was 10 times, nearly 100 times less to start the company there. And I also found that when I went to Vietnam and they saw that I was potentially going to invest in Vietnam, the government picked you up at the airport. They are very, they do the research. They are very welcoming.
Exactly.
So when I was talking to Pak Sandi on my first podcast last week, one thing that came up, that Indonesia loses investments by not being necessarily friendly and easy to deal with.
Exactly.
And I sometimes feel as an investor of several $1 million in this country that people act like I'm lucky to be here.
Yes, especially this regime, you know. I think it is quite arrogant in the sense that if you don't like this nation, you can find other countries.
I get told that quite often, and
Come on.
my Instagram is full of people telling me to leave.
Yeah.
I think people who have worked with me will say, well, he's trying to get things done for the country. I've openly said about how hard it's been to do business and how it should be easier. So surely I've created 150 jobs here. Yeah. We have other companies we're outsourcing to, creating jobs, but I see a huge opportunity in Indonesia, but there is so many of these problems, as you mentioned. That comes on to another question, Indonesia, often I see government, I think, speaking to the domestic audience. So they will come out and say something which anyone with experience knows cannot happen, or will be very hard to happen. But a lot of the domestic audience gets excited by it. But the trouble is, foreign investors look at it and think, what's all this about? Latest example, I think one of the things was the golden visa, which came out a few years ago, lots of fanfare. Yeah. But nobody could really explain to me what the benefits were over other golden visas. Yeah. And if you have money, you get invited constantly to other countries for golden visas. Yes. Portugal, Malaysia have a good one. Yeah. So that's one. And I think the one I'm looking at the moment is currently they're talking about turning Bali into a tax haven to compete with Singapore for ultra high net worth clients. Family offices to bring $500 billion in here. Now, for someone personally who's worked for multi-billion-dollar family offices in Hong Kong and also had business with them in Singapore, it sounds a huge stretch to me, right? Even Tokyo cannot protect its family offices from Singapore and Hong Kong.
Yeah.
Even Tokyo cannot protect its hedge funds.
Yes.
London cannot protect its hedge funds now from Abu Dhabi and Dubai. So why are Indonesia currently coming out with these claims instead of focusing on workable things? I hear a lot of people getting really excited about this when I know that this can't happen. I know it can't happen. You can have an event in Bali. Now, what do you think about that?
Well, the government is very easy to say something like, very easy to build a dream, to build a green narratives, that we have everything, you can do business as what you have in mind as you want, but it is not, I think it is ridiculous, to say like that, family office, the most important thing, as you know, it's an investment banker, It is quite complicated in the sense that you must have a legal structure, a legal system that very, very trustable, that everyone can rely on, And it is a question mark that the rule of law. Yes, the rule of law is a big question mark whether you can protect your investors. That's the problem. To say something that we will build a family office center in Bali, fine. But the question is there someone that trusts you? Yeah, I do not think so. Yeah?
Well, you've got multiple problems, right? You've got the rule of law, as you've mentioned, and we know that's a problem. You've got potential issues with the currency. You've got trust issues.
Yes,
so it certainly doesn't seem a country. This country is set up for a lot of things, but that doesn't seem like one of them.
Yes,
this country, in my opinion, will be a lot better getting more significant FDI.
Yeah.
I was discussing this last week with Pat Gita on the end game.
Yeah.
That I really believe that Indonesia should have been a sponge, like Vietnam was a sponge, China was a sponge. Basically, Vietnam in 2005 allowed Intel to come in, 100% FDI, none of this silly business, local content, because I've been under the local content rules. They come to my office and tell me my air conditioning is from Japan.
Yeah.
This is completely insane. When I'm the only foreigner in a company which employs 150 Indonesians. Yeah. Everything we can buy from Indonesia, we do. Yeah. Of course, not everything we can.
Yeah.
So basically making it easier for companies to come in with 100% FDI and making it easier for top talent from overseas to come in, to then educate the people to take them to a higher level. Yeah. I think that's something that can make a real difference. So, get top level financial professionals in, bring Intel, allow them to bring their own management, because that's what Vietnam did. And Vietnam have spun off now into multiple other global tech companies, right?
Yeah, exactly. The most important thing is for any government that investment should create jobs, and we have a lot of blue-collar jobs, If you can meet the demand, for example, for a certain position in the company because of TKDN, then you must not have pushed that, Most important thing is, again, labor, low-cost labor with low schooling, low schooling background, and they have a job. That's the most important thing. You don't have to you don't have to say that, you need TKDN 40%. That I don't think it is. I think it is very, very absurd, In Vietnam, the story is quite different, The guy says, my king, everyone comes with money to invest in that country. It's welcome, I treat you as my king, as my queen, But here is, okay, you don't like in this country, you can go somewhere else, Something like that you hear every day from the government.
Or you have to partner with locals that you might not want to, or it becomes problematic. And I think everyone talks about the GDP in this country and the 280 million people, but realistically, the bottom of the pyramid is still very big. Yeah. Now, how do you make the bottom of the pyramid smaller? You upskill people. upskilling is very important. How can you upskill people? By bringing in higher quality jobs and training people, obviously improving the education. But at the moment when people talk about education, they tend to just talk about the MBAs who studied in the US. That's a very small group of people. So how do we create jobs and opportunities for the normal people, to move their lives forward, right?
Yeah, exactly. You have to give priority first for what you have. Later you can probably just scale it up. You know what? The problem is this about education. I have talked to Gita as well. Last week. First education and then the economy, or first the economic growth and then education. Because based on my experience in the 1970s and 80s, when, for example, Citibank set up their own business here, Just Manhattan Bank set up their business here, you know what? A lot of people are eager to help, because of what? I go to school and I know where I go later after school, I have a job opportunity. And now with the outlook so bleak, who wants to go to school seriously? I tell you a story. In my time, when I was studying in Holland, Habibie sent a lot of people from BPPT to Delft, for the study of aeronautica, aerospace, Later, they will be engineer in that industry. But you know what the tragedy is? When, after finishing the study, going back to BPPT, they didn't have any job.
Well, exactly. I mean, I always go back to Japan when Japan in the 90s and 2000s invited a lot of foreign finance guys into the market.
Yes.
And the concept, I think, was to get these guys in Japan, train them like Wall Street guys, right? And over time, it's worked. All the top hedge fund guys now are Japanese again. There was a period for a while when they were all bule, all foreigner, right? So I was in that period when there was a lot of foreigners. Goldman's had 100 foreigners in Tokyo. JP Morgan had 100 foreigners. It was standard practice. But what they managed to do was lift up everybody, and there was that opportunity, the big sector. Yeah. So this wasn't taking jobs of locals. This was creating wealth and as if Intel came in and brought their top managers, or Tesla came in and brought their top managers. It's not competing with the local market. No. It's creating more wealth for the normal people.
Exactly.
But do you think sometimes, if you look at the top 10 richest people in the UK, 7 of them were born poor? So whatever I think about England now, and there's many problems, we do have a British dream. There's not many people I meet in Indonesia born with my background who end up having significant wealth, right? Because it's hard. Do you believe that if they have all this market where people really have that Indonesian dream, there's a fear from the elites that they will no longer have all the power?
Well, the elites, talking about that, I believe they have no interest in building the economy. They have interest in their own.
Because they're okay. Yes, they're doing okay. Yeah. I'm okay, Jack.
Okay. Yeah. So this is similar to the period of colonial time when the Dutch was here. They came to Indonesia just for the natural resources. And now, if you see the areas where they play the game, natural resources, sawit, batu bara, they don't care about the people. And the political parties are a good place to have such a people, to cooperate with each other, to have...
Well, everybody seems to want to be in a political party here.
Exactly, because they see, there is no other good place to get a lot of money, without hard working, There's a politics, That's a problem that I call the institutional problem, bureaucracy, rule of law.
Do you think there's too much involvement of the government in everything?
Well,
too much BUMN?
Well, that's right, indeed. I tell everyone, if you want to build this nation, you need to be aware of government failure, Let the market do the job.
A bigger private sector.
Yes, a private sector.
Market economics.
Yes, exactly. You need a smaller government.
I agree.
You need a lower taxes, because the higher the budget is, the higher the probability is that the government is going to burn the money, like this MVG, because of the taxes,
Yeah, I mean, I always also, it's these current cases with corruption at the moment, and again, I wasn't involved. I don't know what's right and what's wrong, but there is a question also whether the government in Indonesia, without having huge amounts of wealth, should be investing in startup companies.
It's not an investment ever, Talking about MBG is not an investment.
MBG's not, but there's other ones, isn't there? Like these, the big state-owned venture funds. That some of the founders are in trouble now.
Yeah.
The questions, and people are saying, well, they were only doing the job. I think the question is, should they ever have the Indonesian government? Should it ever have really been investing in such high-risk investments?
Well, and now they're talking about hilirisasi, Yeah, hilirisasi from all the things, from the mining to the agriculture and something like that. What I have learned at school is actually is quite simple. Every nation should know where its comparative advantage is.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Every nation should know where to start with its comparative advantage. I have told everyone, the most beautiful thing today that you need to build is ecosystem. For what? For the carbon credit. A lot of, the world needs it, Carbon credit, we have a lot of hutan. We have a lot of forests. We have a lot of gambut. Yeah? We have a lot of everything that can capture the carbon. And we are rich of that, I told everyone. And you need only a badan, badan, a green economy body, and then you create a sort of a green farm to fish out money from over there to invest in ecosystem. That's the beauty, I tell everyone as well. We can give money to the government 2,000 trillion every year. If doing this business seriously, creating the business, you can get probably a buyer from everywhere.
But also think that one of the problems with a lot of the investments in the startup world, it was like a get-rich-quick scheme.
Yeah.
It wasn't a long-term strategy for the country.
Yes, you want to get it overnight. How come, it needs time,
Of course.
It takes time, What is the government doing now? It is against the nature, It is against nature. Deforestation everywhere. Instead of you reforestate, you do deforestation. Instead of you sell the carbon credit, you have to buy the carbon credit later. Yeah?
All right.
Yeah. Something like that happens in this country because they want to get a quick win overnight.
It is a quick win. Yeah. When I started building this business, people kind of mocked me, said, you can't build deep tech in Indonesia. You can't, it takes too long. Of course, any kind of companies like, NVIDIA took years to get where they are today. You've got to accept that, right? And I think the forefathers of this country did accept that.
Yeah.
But the problem has become, certainly from the third generation, maybe of a lot of people, especially the people who lived in the US, they come back and they just want to get rich quick from what we call the TAM metrics, total addressable market of Indonesia, which often is ridiculous because it doesn't actually make any sense. You know what I mean? Okay, moving on to other things. Now, I was quite interested to read that you were involved on the expert council for the Prabowo and Gibran campaign.
Yeah.
So I think you've obviously got some idea about this. Where do you see the biggest gap between campaign promises and the current economic execution?
Well, I didn't expect, basically I didn't expect that things are going so bad, like now, because the first time that I took a look at the program that Prabowo put in paper, like MBG, and I saw a huge amount of money for that program, 400 so much billion rupiah. And I was asking myself, where does the money come from? I thought at that time that it was just a tool for the campaign, to get the people,
All right. Okay. So you thought that was part to get elected.
Exactly. I didn't think that it would be going on.
But is this not the cost of everything, though? I went viral recently for commenting on the billions of dollars spent in Indonesia to build very basic apps. And every government organization is building a different app. And I know how much money I've spent. I have a deep tech product being used by some of the biggest companies in the world. How much is spent me? It's a fraction of what these guys are spending. So I'm thinking that if I always comment on this, why is the public sector spending all this money on things where really they should just have a private sector partnership and let professionals who are run by market economics, because I need to make money. So this is across the board. The amount of money that's spent, I know, on technology, which is very low level within government organizations, is ludicrous. And often you see now people leave the startup world and then they go into the government to run a tech business, which they've already failed in the original.
Yeah.
I wonder, like, it seems like the amount of money being wasted by the government is insane for a country that's not that rich.
Yes. I don't know. I'm speechless as well. I don't know what the answer is. Because every time I talk to the people on the TV, on the YouTube channel, stop this program. This is burning money. If you believe that this is investment, you must be wrong. Investment, there are two sorts of investment: tangible and intangible. Tangible assets, like building, road, airport, right? Haven, waduk, and so on and so. Intangible, education, research and development, health, This is, come in, go out. This is not investment at all. This is consumption. And it is also a big question mark. There is a case, this is very bold, that this project is corruption. The head of the BGN, Dadan Hindayana, now he's put in jail by the Kejaksaan, So you must.
Every single time somebody goes to jail these days, people say it's criminalization. People say
this is not a criminalization. This is the case. This is another story. Then Nadim, for example, and the other guys. But this is really the fact that this program is very, very vulnerable.
But I do not think this. From my perspective, I see in government across the board the amount of money getting wasted cannot just be mistakes. Common sense. 2002, I was interviewed by a technology magazine, and they called me a contrarian because I called out like all these big investments by both venture capitalists and also state-owned enterprises into technology, which I don't know how they're going to get the money back.
Yes.
I was like, well, this is not rational because that will not work because of this.
Yes.
And I just feel that either it was. I always used to say at the time, this is either stupidity or corruption. Which one is it? Because it doesn't really make sense. So I think it's not just MBG, it happens across various businesses. Right?
Very, 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 something like that is very much.
How do you view this? Again, this is not something how do you view a country like Indonesia with all the issues it's got? Keep on sorting these pet projects. We've discussed the Bali thing.
Yeah.
But Danantara, for example. Danantara, what do you see the benefits of Danantara?
No, there is no benefit. I believe it will be a kind of 1 MDB that you saw in Malaysia years ago, And I have talked about.
I actually know Mr. Low personally.
Yes, you can imagine. They say that they still believe when they say this is a sort of sovereign wealth fund. Come on, man, sovereign wealth fund with asset busuk.
Of course, because a sovereign wealth fund, in the way I see a sovereign wealth fund. And again, I've worked with some in the past, is access capital from a rich country.
Exactly.
So the countries that have sovereign wealth funds, the big ones,
exactly.
Abu Dhabis of this world, Dubai's. I mean, we don't hear about England investing in tech startups and stuff. We don't hear about England sovereign wealth in England bailing out things. Yeah, by just putting all your assets under it and then calling it the third biggest in the world, and then also forcing people to buy bonds on the market. Again, this from an external point of view, it's not a good look. People look at it from outside and go, what are they doing?
It is also not an incentive. This is also it's not a sovereign wealth fund. If you see the total asset of that, they claim that it amounts to 1 billion. 1 billion or 1 trillion US dollar.
If it was a sovereign wealth fund, they would not need
majority is distressed assets,
Of course. It's state-owned enterprise companies, right? The share value of the state-owned.
Exactly. And they have no enterprise value, they have no market value at all. Only the total asset everyone can count it, The total asset from one company, they across the other company, then you get it to some of the company.
I always argue.
The question is,
I can't remember Singapore having to force the richest people to buy bonds on the market to fund the sovereign wealth fund, right? That's not a good sign. You don't see that in Abu Dhabi.
No.
The only place it might happen, I think I've read it, probably Turkey, because Turkey's got a similar kind of sovereign wealth fund, but also claiming to be one of the biggest in the world by putting together all the assets.
You probably heard that yesterday, the Nantara claim it was a successful story that they got
1.5 billion.
billion.
The question is, how is that possible?
I don't know. It is round tripping,
round tripping in. Just using common sense that it wouldn't make sense at the moment for foreign investors to do that, right? It just and when you read these articles, you see so
and they have all released their financial statement as well, financial report.
And you see the comments below. It's like, great, bro. God bless Indonesia, bro. And it's like, you're the best, bro. But actually, does anyone? Unfortunately, most of the people I think here don't fully understand. Yeah. Most people think they're being talked to by gurus. Yes. These people are major players in Asian finance, and they will believe whatever they say to an extent. So moving on to the current regime, how you assess the coordination between the Bank of Indonesia and the Ministry of Finance under Pak Babaya?
Well, I think Bank Indonesia is under pressure by the government. They have to intervene in the market. They'll try to get the dollar down with the international reserve so small. I believe it has been sliding down from 155, and now today you have already below 155. It is a dangerous maneuver. You must stop your intervention, Bank Indonesia. But you know what? Through P2SK, the new regulation, now the Bank Indonesia should coordinate with the Minister of Finance, meaning that it is no longer an independent institution.
But like America these days.
Yes, it is dangerous, and I'm afraid Bank Indonesia will be pushed to print money to fund the government budget deficit, This is very, very dangerous.
Of course.
And it is understandable that the dollar kept rising, kept going up, because people do not trust again this country. This is a matter of trust, This is not only a matter of fundamental economy, but this is a matter of trust and distrust. So you heard some days ago that sell Indonesia, they have the region, of course.
Well, very interesting you say that, because some friend of mine, like a lady who works here, she sent me a quite aggressive message. Are you part of the Sell Indonesia thing too? Mm-hmm. And I replied back, it's not a movement. Mm. It's people, a lot of the people who are saying that care. They've invested for a long time. Yeah. I've got, my friend is running a Franklin Templeton Emerging Markets Fund out of Singapore. Mm. And they've been in Indonesia for many years. Mm. And now, there's multiple factors, reasons why. Mm. The liquid stock market, the funny business going on, and the lack of rule of law. There's multiple reasons. This isn't foreigners picking on Indonesia. I've seen this portrayed in the media that go home, don't get involved with our politics. It's not. Some of these people are not here. They're in Singapore, but they are huge investors in Indonesia. Yes. So we've got to ask ourselves the question: is everybody wrong? Is everybody who's qualified with international experience wrong? So how do you see the current finance minister's role in all this?
Well, I don't think he is the right man. The finance minister today, Mr. Purbaisa, I know him very well. 25 years ago, we were together at an Arecta, I still believe he has no slightest notion of how the economy works, Yes, what he does is upside down somewhere, you know what?
And he doesn't like being told he's wrong. I saw the Bloomberg interview.
For example, last year, when people rush buying the dollar, instead of lowering the interest rate on dollar, so it would not be so attractive, he told every bank, every Himbara bank, state-owned banks to raise the dollar deposit interest rate. So people converted the rupiah into the dollar. This is upside down, so he's not the right man. I tell everyone. He though he got a PhD from American University, it doesn't.
That usually means you have rich parents.
Yes, it doesn't mean that he knows how the economy works. That's the problem,
But do you not think that comes back to the thing? A lot of these guys regularly speak to the domestic audience, and when they have to speak
just to get a sympathy from
like when people, he was, like, we don't care. I heard the president said, we don't care about the rupiah because people in the villages don't spend dollars, right?
I know what he has in mind, Martin. As long as the president trusts me, as long as the president believes in what I say, I don't care what you say about me because I need my position. So when the president believes what I say, I'm safe, I believe that is what he has in mind.
Yeah, maybe. It comes back to the same thing, though. It's like you've got these guys saying these things. As you say, the president might support it, but a lot of international investors are deeply concerned about many things happening here. Yeah. And this isn't a campaign against Indonesia or anything. What purpose would there be? Most people I know in international investment markets, and I'm pretty connected in Asian finance, most of them think Indonesia got massive potential. Always have thought Indonesia had massive potential. But they're getting tired of the but. got massive potential, but and it's been bought for over 10 years now, and and it's getting slightly worse. So I think despite various packages, incentives for these FDI, most of these packages, incentives, golden visa, these things that they bring out are not really attractive. So Indonesia is still performing poorly for FDI despite all these attractive.
Yes.
How do you think it can be improved? I mean, how do you think it can be addressessed?
Well, I don't think it can be addressed overnight, because the problem is, again, institutional in the sense that though democracy is basically not good for Indonesia, because people, when they come here to invest in this country, they don't know what, after 5 years, you don't know what kind of people become number one again, with their regulation.
I've started thinking democracy, after what I've seen in America for the last few years, I've started thinking democracy is not good for anyone. I mean, at least let's have an IQ test before we vote for it, because where votes can be bought, right? We've seen now in America, and it's become a hot topic. People like Tucker Carlson have broken from Trump, and the big thing which is really upsetting people is what's come out in the last few. It's always been there, but how many Congress people on both sides of the House are being paid for by APAC?
Yes.
A foreign government is financing them to get their votes in Congress, which is no longer democracy.
Yes.
And we know that people were paid recently to vote on one side. That's in America.
Yes.
America. Jesus. I mean, you imagine what goes on here? You're paying for votes and things. So at what point, when we find that some of the people who were massively against this candidate in 2020 or massively for this candidate in 2025, as far as I know, no, there is no like socialism or capitalism here. It's just a kind of keeping power amongst a small group of people.
Yeah, exactly.
So, how do you, how do you think this affects, if you look at, to your honest opinion, how attractive is Indonesia now as a foreign investment when compared to Malaysia, Vietnam, Thailand, Philippines?
Well, basically, as I said earlier in this program to you, the government should be friendly, The government is not friendly at all, the fact is, because, they believe that we are a great nation, we have everything, we have something like that. You need us instead of I need you, that's the problem.
We've never been, apart from the director level people have really supported me in BKPM. But the minister level people, considering we've created one of the first Indonesian companies ever to go overseas and do okay, there's not been, we consider you're here because of us. It's a different thought process, right?
Yeah.
So moving on, because we've got lots of questions still, but we won't be asking them all. But what do you think about this new wave of financial influencers? Do you think it's a dangerous thing or a good thing? Like online, you see all these people advising people on finance, and then you look at their background and they're not finance people. They're just using their way or their connections to launch a financial channel, and they're giving advice on futures and crypto and stocks, but actually there's no substance to it. What do you think of that?
Well, it is a mess, basically, I'm afraid, now talking about, again, the credibility of our nation, I believe the rating agencies will downgrade our country, A friend of mine is invited by JP Morgan in Europe, I heard from him, he has made some survey from the pension funds in UK, in Netherlands and in Germany, in 3 countries. Basically, the pension funds has downgraded our rating to be non-investment grade. There's the tactical asset allocation instead of 2%, and now they reduce to 0.5%. This is.
Well, the real concern, I think, is the response to it. The response to it is not we'll get our house in order. The response to it is we'll do without you then. You know what I mean? We don't need you. There's no, look at the stock market here, right? If you look at the look at the S&P 500, there's only one company that has a float less than 50%, which is Sands Resort, Marianne Adelson, who's also the big supporter of the APAC. It's the only stock listed in the 225, which is a lower float than 50%. And because of that, most of the big, BlackRock and people keep out of it. It's not liquid enough. I don't know if there's any stocks here with a liquidity of more than 50. Most of them, even if they bring it to 15%, they're talking, right? That's nothing. That's not enough liquidity to make the stock market an attractive proposition.
Exactly.
And also you need to, if you want to be a competitor, because I remember talking to Pak Imam before when he was there that night with you in the ANA. They have all this dream about making it highly liquid, but again, you can't short the market to protect these people.
Exactly.
Look at Japan equities. It's very, very, very liquid, right?
Yes.
And that's why there's so much money flows into that market still, despite their demographical situation. Okay, so I've got some quick questions for you, quick fire questions. Just very quickly, what's one surprising change you've seen in the Indonesian economy in the past 20 years?
Well, in the past, come on, man. If you compare to the period before, the 25 years after the fall of Suharto, we see the economic growth is struggling to get 5%.
So it comes back to democracy is a bad idea.
Democracy has created a big problem.
So only one person was stealing the money then? Well, now multiple people are stealing the money.
Yeah, the 1%, and everyone knows that he is not going away after 5 years. He stays in power. It created sort of security.
Look at Vietnam. I mean, it's true. I mean, I have to admit, they are so organized. They've got a clear policy. China.
Because they know.
Shenzhen in the last 20 years is unnoticeable. I mean, the growth in Shenzhen is amazing. I spent a lot of time there. It's just like, even compared to, you compare Shenzhen to New York, it's just a different, the cleanliness, everything. It's just amazing, really. What's the most overrated economic narrative in Indonesia right now?
The most what?
Overrated economic narrative.
Yes, that basically economic narrative is nothing else but building the dreams, and building the grand narratives, that we are busy with hilirisasi, we are busy with the supply chain, something like that. But the fact is nothing that people see as the result, The most dangerous thing that you have to take to bear in mind is, again, back to the Nantara. I'm afraid this institution called Sovereign Wealth Fund will be a burden on our APBN.
Apparently, the salaries are very good to work there.
Yeah, and after 2 years in operation, I don't see the result at all.
So, if you were to become the head of Danantara, what's the first thing you would do?
The first thing that I should do is just dissolve this institution. Dissolve this institution because it becomes a burden for the nation.
So how much confidence do you have in, there's a lot of claims recently that some of the data coming out of Indonesia might not be as clean as you think it is. How much trust do you have in the current data we get from GDP numbers, etc.?
The GDP numbers, you know what? Back to the growth rate for 5%. This basically what I call it image rising growth, because that doesn't create jobs, The growth rate is high, relatively 5%, but if you see the middle income class, it is sliding down.
Yeah, GDP goes up, but GDP per capita doesn't. Yes. Because the jobs for the GDP per capita remains less than 5,000 Indonesian.
That's been after so many years democracy, it is struggling to get higher than that, because of what?
So the growth is just amongst the oligarch class.
Yes, exactly. And now you see our export, we rely on export, but not manufacturing, is natural resources. Commodities, like sawit, batu bara, coal, something like that. It is an extractive economy and not an inclusive economy. Extractive economy.
I agree. I think looking at startups, right? I mean, whatever people think of these, even the unicorns, why do all the founders in these startup companies sell the shares and bail out early? Right? Why do to me, it's extracting wealth from the country. It's not building a company like the Salims did back in the day, or like Ibrahim Rishad did back in the day, build generational companies. Yes. This is all get in, get out, get rich. Yes. And usually by elite kids, right? Indonesia doesn't have a tech startup ecosystem of normal people. I mean, I'm one of the few people, but I made my money in Japan and Hong Kong, right? When you look at most of the startups in Indonesia, they are from the, elite class anyway, or very close to it. They went to, I couldn't do an MBA in Pepperdine because I can't afford it, right? So, this is basically the issue in the startup economy. I always call it extractive because they get up the price, they then dump it on retail, dump it on foreign investors. And that was the whole thing with e-fishery. I mean, do I believe that Gibran did that on his own? Of course not. He must have had help to get those numbers so silly. And then I think the concept is just everyone sells out to either, if we can do IPO, sell to the poor people. And if we can't do IPO, sell to the stupid foreigner. Because Indonesia at that time was really hot property. And it became highly, people became highly arrogant with it. What's one positive development then you see in the Indonesian economy right now?
Well, we need a new generation to get it out of the ground. You cannot act. This is a hopeless. I mean, you cannot expect anything from this situation now, from the current regime. And I still believe the output is quite green, and I still believe that foreign investor will not go out coming back.
And is there anything that the president can do to change this?
That's what the president should do if you want to see the change. Again, just stop any program that is burning money in the very first place. Reshuffle the cabinet. Put the right man on the right place. Like it's a credible people. You mentioned about the Minister of Finance. I told you he was not the right man. But he's not the right.
Do you think this comes back to meritocracy?
Yes.
A lack of meritocracy.
You should go back to meritocracy.
But there isn't a meritocracy in Indonesia.
Yes, that's the problem.
How many people get jobs?
Yes, that's the problem.
I mean, and do you think there is any argument for? I always say this, when I was a younger person, and the now president of Canada, Mark Carney, was the governor of the Bank of England.
Yes.
Do you think that in some situations there will be, in some businesses, having experienced foreign nationals who've done it globally to come in and become involved will be a good thing?
Well, I think it is very, very, very good point that you should.
Because they won't, like for me, for example, I'm not into all this sycophant behavior. I don't care who your dad is. I don't care. But here, most people care, right?
Yeah.
So to have a foreigner in the market to run running the sovereign wealth, running some of the big banks, running the BI, they are less likely to be brought along by this pressure, etc., right? Yeah. And they can act independently with their opinions and maybe be able to improve the situation.
Exactly. But the political elite, I don't think they have the same thought like you.
No, of course. The political elite definitely don't want. I won't be getting invited to join Dan and Tara, I don't think. Even though I'm quite experienced, I could probably help them. But no, of course not. I mean, I always say how many of these guys are walking into top financial jobs in Singapore, in Hong Kong, in Japan. That's not a criticism of them. It's just that sometimes you get too much too young and too little experience. And, I see a lot of these young kids of people running businesses. And what's their track record to do that? Because that doesn't work. For example, in Hong Kong, you go to the big families like Swire. I used to work with one of the kids. They own like half of Hong Kong and they own, Cathay Pacific. But the business is run by guys with vast experience. 60-year-old guys from Sydney or London who've got experience. It doesn't just go to the family straight away. And it's a very different setup, right? Because a lot of them companies are listed and they're listed at like 80% listed. So you can't just appoint people. Shareholders have got to agree. Whereas here it's different. There's a lot of, I would say there's no accountability. All these startup businesses blew up. All this money got burned. A lot of the people who burned the money have just gone on to better jobs. There's nobody saying, it doesn't seem to be much going on. So I'm going to close now. And first question, I think, is the one that you've gone viral about recently. And I want you to tell me, on the 1st of January 2027, where do you think the rupee will be to the US dollar?
Well, still strongly, I believe that the rupee is getting worse against the dollar.
But did you say 25,000?
25,000, I still believe in that because the outlook is quite green, and the problem is that the government has no sense of crisis at all. They've
got no sense of crisis, and they talk to domestic markets. Yes, exactly. You go to an event, it's full of fans, everyone's taking pictures, everyone's clapping. It looks like we've just won the election again. It's more of a, I saw this in the startup and the VC world, it's more of a, what would I call it? Like a celebration of our success, whatever the situation. You know what I mean? So that mentality of like celebrating and talking to that domestic audience, I think is really dangerous. And not facing some of the key problems
Well, they deny it actually, but they know where the problem is, but they try to deny it by talking to the people that everything is all right. Yeah, we have a strong fundamental of our economy. Don't worry, my friend. You can post about economic growth of 6% later. Why the fact it is not because you know what? And now,
What about, you not think we're going to get MS 2045 then? 8% growth?
I don't think so. We can never get it. We can never achieve it. I believe in my calculation, in my equation, the 5% growth is over. We are entering a new equilibrium growth rate of just 2
But it shouldn't be like that in Indonesia.
It must be.
It shouldn't be like that with the population.
Exactly, young population.
It shouldn't be like that. That's a problem.
Basically, the potential output, the potential growth of our economy is 7.5%.
I agree. I mean, I think a lot of these problems can be solved very quickly.
Yeah.
I think, as you say, stop wasting money and do a lot less state-owned enterprises and a lot more private sector, financially driven.
Exactly.
Less burning money in the private sector, startups and all this stuff. Focus on building proper businesses.
Yes, that's my advice basically. The government should retreat, Do not so much intervention in the market, You have a government failure. And please be aware of that. Give more space to the private sector to spend their money.
Of course. And that's exactly what the trickle down effect, basically, right?
Exactly.
So, what advice have you got for any young economist, and what is coming from Pack Ferry next?
Yes.
And what stocks do you currently buy?
Well, the stock that I buy is, of course, a unicorn. If I may say, may I say that?
Say what you want, boss.
I'm collecting GoTo. It is too big to fail. Yeah, GoTo.
Really?
Yes, it is too big to fail. Yeah, and
because the government will bail it out.
The stock drops so much because of what the Prabhu says. The commission fee should be cut from 20% to 8%, but the per press.
It's been 80% down plus since the IPO, right?
Exactly.
It's never got above 80%.
Exactly. I still believe that it is going up again because after burning money so many years, more than 10 years, it has started.
But its cumulative losses still sit at around 12 billion US dollars.
Exactly.
It's a lot of money to me. Even if you start making money now, it's going to be 30 years.
You know what? The beauty of the business is it creates jobs in the informal sector.
I get that bit.
Yes.
But do you not think the bottom of the pyramid is too big to actually make money in that business?
Exactly. And now people that has to go from the formal sector, they find jobs in Ojek, They find bread and butter in Ojek, So the earnings of GoTo will be larger and larger because it creates people for in the informal sector, And it is in the very first unicorn, it is too big to fail to my point of view, So I keep buying GoTo.
Interesting. I just think one of the problems I face with a lot of the promo-driven businesses, yes, it creates jobs, it's great, but and that's the same as all the financial inclusion things. A lot of them have been run more like charities. That's the issue.
Yes.
They're not businesses in this proper sense of the word because they've had so much money to burn.
Yeah, well, I think it is a character. It is a characteristic of any startup. In the first 5 years, in the first 10 years, probably you have to burn money, and later you gain money. For example, Amazon.
Yeah. I agree, but the trouble is with GoTo, GoTo's only in Indonesia, where the bottom of the pyramid is big.
In the 90s, it was street only $5, 20 years later, $2,000.
Indonesia, I think Indonesian companies like GoTo need to seriously consider going outside the country also and succeeding outside the country. Stop relying on the TAM metrics here, because that's the only way I believe that these companies can become highly profitable because the margins are way for thin here on the B2C market. It's very hard to make money in the B2C sector and it hasn't really been done yet.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So what's next for you then? What's your next plan?
My next plan?
Yeah.
I have no plan at all.
No plan?
No plan at all. I'm invited so much by the YouTubers, to talk about our economy. I still believe I tell everyone the outlook is quite grim. You should be cautious if you are investing in the stock market.
So I think what I want to conclude with now is the closing. I want to conclude with, do you not think it's very important, as I was saying to Pak Sandy last week and saying to Pak Gita, people who have maybe a negative outlook should not just be like closed down, like, oh, you don't know what you're talking about, you're stupid. People should also take on board the opinions of some of these people, because some of these people are very experienced, like yourself. I have Asian financial experience. All I ever get told is, I don't understand Indonesia. You're stupid, you don't understand Indonesia. However, I predicted all these problems, and a lot of them, not so much governmental problems, but the startup world. I predicted the scandals which would happen because the numbers didn't make sense. You know what I mean? I just rationally said, well, I've been doing this business for 20 years. I was responsible for a $2.5 billion business in Hong Kong, and them numbers don't make sense. And you can shout at me and call me stupid and say, hey, they don't. I think one of the things that needs to happen is some of these views need taken on board from people.
Yeah.
And it needs to stop being seen as just always these people are critics, they're bad for our economy.
Yeah.
That's what it's seen like, right?
I deal with numbers. I deal with that. I
deal with facts. Not opinion.
No.
Opinions are obviously important, but you've got to back it up with facts.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly. That is what I did. When I predicted the dollar would go to 17,000 when it was still trading at 15,000. I told everyone 1 year ago that our rating is at stake. It probably will be downgraded by rating agencies, and it happened. I deal with numbers, I deal with data, I deal with the fact, and I use my logic.
Yeah, absolutely. Logic's very important. Yes. I always think, often here, people are drinking the Kool-Aid, I call it. We call it in England or America drinking the Kool-Aid. And echo chambers.
Yes.
And if you're outside the echo chamber, sometimes people talk to you like you're part of the problem.
Yeah.
Which I think the problem is echo chambers.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Anyway, bring this to an end. Fantastic having you on the show today.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, boss. Great to see you.
Thank you.
Thank you.